Hey, what's going on, everybody out there? Peace and blessings. This is Karev of Heritage Hip Hop, asking you to subscribe to heritagehiphop.com. Once again, I thank you for joining me tonight on Heritage Hip Hop. It's an honor and a pleasure to get to talk to everybody out there. You may be seeing this live tonight, or you may be seeing this tomorrow or a day after, and that's cool. Whenever you see this, please hit the like button as soon as you get on because we want to hit the algorithm first. Please hit the like button. Next, share. I ask that you subscribe to heritagehiphop.com. You can follow Heritage Hip Hop on all social media, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Sometimes people use Boomy Wit. I'm there too. You know what I mean? And also, the podcast is able to be heard on the anchor.fm, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we are now on Amazon Podcasts and iHeartRadio. So for everybody out there that's watched the podcast and seen it grow, thank you. And we ask that we continue to make this thing happen. You see what I'm saying? It's a pleasure and an honor to get to talk to y'all tonight. And I want to continue the conversation called The Soundtrack of My Life. People use music to remember certain things that have happened in their lives, right? Do you remember the song that you heard when you had your first kiss? Do you remember the song that reminds you of a family member who's passed away? Hip hop for me has always taken me to something or someplace special that keeps it meaningful whenever I think about, you know, people, places, things, so on, and experiences that I had. I'm gonna tell you some of my favorite memories and events that happen when it comes to hip hop in my life. You know, there's things that we take for granted that are hip hop that we only associate it with music, but there's a lot of things in hip hop that's bigger than music. You see what I'm saying? I could tell you one in particular. Like I said to everybody out there who knows me, hip hop for me started when I saw Ralph McDaniels and Video Music Box. Me personally, that was when hip hop really started because I really got to see different aspects of music. If you know the Video Music Box opening, you saw Prince, you saw Aha, you saw I forgot, I think Debbie Gibson on there. You saw Run DMC. You saw Bernard Wright, rest in peace. Who do you love? Are you for sure? You got to see all those many things on the intro, and that showed me a culture clash. But the one video I remember always seeing was Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock, It Takes Two. My brother would tell me when I was little, that was the song that made me go bananas. So I'm in the room dancing and everything, and that was the song that, turned me out. Because besides hip hop at that time, the main thing I listened to was whatever my siblings played or whatever I heard in my mother's car. Because in my house growing up, I didn't listen to music. Music was not allowed. My dad did not listen to music, and I only heard music when my mom took me to school. And one of the architects of style when it comes to music was Barry White. And whenever I hear this one song, I always hear or think about my mom. And this is very hip hop to me because Barry White, as you know, did songs with Big Daddy Kane. And OG Barry White is Black Gorilla Family, for those who know the West Coast story of Barry White. You know what I'm saying? But for me, when I think about hip hop, my mom has a very pivotal impact in hip hop. When I would go, we driving in her car, and the one song I always heard came on the radio was Barry White's Love Theme from the Barry White Love Theme Orchestra. If you know that song, the music is very amazing. Very, like I said, it's an orchestra, so you hear a lot of things. My mom passed away, so little things like that take me back to loving and remember the person who I had in my life at that time. You see what I'm saying? And the Love Theme Orchestra was something I heard every day going to school. You know what I'm saying? I remember being in the car, and that was the song. Besides that, I was a Michael Jackson head when I was little. So do y'all remember Thriller? Thriller was very hip hop. I mean, I had the hardcore boom bap beats and everything, but it was an unapologetic style video that took Michael Jackson to the heights of his career. But if you want to argue, well, that's not really hip hop. We need something that's more, hip hop ready. All right. I remember being in elementary school and hearing Run DMC for the first time. And I believe the first song I ever heard of Run DMC was Rock Box. And Video Music Box used to play Rock Box heavy. And if y'all know, at that time in the 1980s, hip hop was not played and black videos were not played on MTV. MTV was more known for rock videos, Cyndi Lauper, and the World Wrestling Federation, which is now called World Wrestling Entertainment. It was rock and wrestling. People they didn't play black videos. So Michael Jackson was the first artist of color that was played on MTV in the 80s. After a while, through the depression, I want my MTV and all that. MTV went into explore other avenues of black music. And one of the songs that they played was Rock Box by Run DMC. So when you see the guy standing on the car playing the guitar and the car is pulling up and you see Run DMC in the Adidas tracksuits, it's like, whoa, what is this? It was a culture shock. It came out of nowhere. Like, what is this? Ralph McDaniels opened me up to hip hop, not just because I got to see other people like me and hear their music. It was a clash of styles because rock was considered white music. And back then, I didn't even know it had black origins, so-called black origins. But Run DMC turned me out because I was like, dang, there's more to this. There's more than rock bass and DJ Easy Rock, more than It Takes Two. And it was different styles. Run was a beast and DMC was technical. But other than that, though, Run DMC showed me more. And Radio Music Box showed me more. Because it was girls who could rap. It was Kid and Play. And Kid and Play had the kick step and the dance. You had Salt and Pepper. Who did not have a crush on Salt and Pepper when they were younger? Who was your favorite member of Salt and Pepper? The one that always got me? Spinderella. And Spinderella was the first female DJ I ever saw. So that really made me go, wow, there's something new to this hip hop thing. You got guys, you got girls, you had Mooney Love, you had Queen Latifah. When Buddy came out with the Native Tongues, it was like, yo, this thing is really something. And hip hop was very special because, like I said in my previous video, I lived in one town, but I grew up in another town. So what was acceptable in one town was not acceptable in another town. And it was like, yo, I just had to grow up with a very limited understanding of many things and had to grow up the hard way, understanding that hip hop was my buffering point to a lot of those things. See, in my town that I lived in, very racist, very, very, very limited. The only other people that were my complexion were my neighbors down the street, and one of my good friends, Eric, would come by, and he was the only other person of complexion like me that I saw, and everybody else was Caucasian, right? But that's where I lived. Where I grew up and learned life was in Newark, New Jersey. Shout out to Osborne Terrace. Shout out to Hawthorne Avenue. I went to school on Martin Luther King Boulevard. I was across on West Side in the summers. So Newark, New Jersey was the truth. Downtown Newark, the Y. That's where I grew up. That's my training in life right there. And when you get around other people that look like you but don't have the same experiences as you, you get that hard lesson of what's to be said, what's not to be said, how to dress. Your shortcomings are put on blast very, very harshly, and I went through that. Anybody y'all can relate to that? Drop a comment, leave a like, let me know. I don't see no likes yet. Like the video so it hits the algorithm. All right. But what do you think? I mean, how did hip hop hit you? Because when it hit me, I learned the harsh lessons of what was acceptable or what was not. And the many types of hip hop that was out, I didn't get. I only got what my brother exposed me to. So when I went into the concourse of people, that's when I heard other things. Like my brother primarily, let me keep it real with you. My brother exposed me to Public Enemy, who's one of my favorite hip hop groups of all time. X Clan, and positive rap, basically. And that's where I got my identity when it came to militancy or basically having pride in my people. You know what I'm saying? And that's the hip hop soundtrack to hip hop, or my life of hip hop, was that hip hop gave me a pride that school never taught me. When I was in school, you know, we were taught about slavery, how to say your letters and your numbers, or how to write. And I went to Catholic school, so I learned about how all these white images of people were holy, and anybody who was dark skinned were devils. So that's what I was taught when I was younger. You see what I'm saying? And when I was younger, it was fight the power, or to the east backwards, or poor righteous teachers rock this funky joint, KRS-One, my philosophy. It was songs like that that taught me that being a black man in this country is more than what I was being shown at that time. Then, like I said, I was always also watching Eyes on the Prize on PBS. When my brother would watch that with me, and I would learn about Emmett Till, Martin Luther King Jr. I learned about Malcolm X. I learned about the Black Panther Party, and then my brother introduced me to MCs like Paris, who had an album called "The Devil Made Me Do It." So hip hop soundtrack and hip hop taught me how to be proud of myself and know that I'm capable of more than what society has given me um, at the time. Because I was getting empty education at the time. I remember going to school, like I said before, in second grade, and I did a Black History. Everybody did Black History papers on Harriet Tubman or Rosa Parks or Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. I did mine on the Black Panthers, and I got laughed at the classroom because the kids told me that the Black Panther Party never existed, and they were never taught it, and they didn't know. That was one of the first revelations of a soundtrack of my life of going against the grain, is because I did something that people just didn't know. They didn't share that insight that I had at the time. You see what I'm saying? I mean, what can I tell you, man? I mean, that was real. You know, hip hop taught me a lot about the power and the struggle of people. Hip hop taught us about saying no to drugs at one time. If you remember Human Education Against Lies, the Heal Yourself movement, that movement was about people beating racism and beating drug use. Hip hop always all said at one time, don't kill people. We had the self-destruction movement, and the West Coast had we're all in the same gang movement. You know what I'm saying? Hip hop was very positive at one time. So part of the soundtrack of my life and learning how to love myself came from hip hop music. You had the pretty girls who could dance and tell you that your life is important, and you had the militant men who told you, yeah, it's all good to dance, and people do things, but be strong and be moral. See, in my soundtrack to life, I don't have a love song that hip hop comes to mind because I didn't develop that at that time. I didn't have like the song that made me get up, get out, and get something. I had the song that taught me that, yo, in the midst of people telling you that you are nothing, I had songs that told me that you are something. And it taught me about the history of our people and our culture. And that's what's very important. Music can be used to teach you about positive things and how to accept the God in you and bring it out of you. Unfortunately, today, a lot of people criticize the music because it's oversexed, overstimulated with drug use, and highly convinced with murder. But the reason why it is that way is because that's all you hear. And we have great artists out right now that don't make music like that. So why don't we hear them? You have to blame not only how people spend their money, but the companies that are put in charge of the music that we hear. Also, with the game changing, it's how you market. And if people are not going to put money into you, then your space is going to be this limited, if not smaller. And that's sad because at that time in the 90s, people really put it out there that they wanted you to really know what the music was. Salute to my man June Pierre. Make sure you check him out off the Top Radio Sports, A Squad Rebel Radio TV. June, what's up, bro? So keeping it real with you, hip hop always was special to me because hip hop was the teacher I always wanted that I did not have. And my brother introduced me to hip hop. My mother introduced me to rhythm when it came to Barry White's orchestra. My father didn't teach me much about music, and my sister didn't give me anything when it came to music. So music I had to learn on my own. So when I first saw Straight Outta Compton by NWA, I was like, oh shit, niggas walking down the street with fire in their sneakers and all black. Straight Outta Compton, crazy motherfucker named Ice Cube from the gang called Niggas with Attitudes. When I first heard that, I was like, yo, this is different than Fight the Power. This is different than Black Steel in the Hour of Chaos. It was different. And when I went to school and said, yo, y'all ever heard this song called Straight Outta Compton? Everybody was like, that's old. And I'm like, excuse me? You know what I'm saying? But that wake up call really showed me that, like I said, the town I grew up in was different than the town I was raised in. Most young men in America have an issue with their identity, especially men of color, because we deal with racism from the day we're born. When you first come out your mom's womb and you're smacked on the ass, you have encountered racism three ways. Number one, where you were born, how your mom was treated when she was in the hospital, and two, after you're born, what they did to you. Then as a child, you grow up looking at things that you wish you could be instead of seeing things that made you feel that is you. Let me tell you a story. There was a young boy who saw the Black Panther movie, R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman, when it first came out. And he said after the movie to America on his social media, is this how you feel? Is this what it feels like when you see a hero that looks like you? Is this how you feel? When people like me grew up and we saw Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, we wanted to be like them. But people who were their complexion felt they were them. And that's a big difference. So when hip hop was exposed to me as a young man, not only did I see what I could be or what I wanted to be or someone I could look up to or look at, my superheroes became the people I could relate to. But who did I want to relate to? And those were the examples that we were giving. Unfortunately, today that thing still happens because now with the climate of negativity being so high, people look at athletes and rapper and entertainers, and that's it. But hip hop at one time taught us about, look at on KRS-One, You Must Learn, taught us about the history of people from Christ in the Bible all the way down to Lewis Latimer and people today like Malcolm X and things like that. And hip hop gave us an identity of something to be and a persevere some way in which not only did we see, learn, think, feel, and understand that there was more to life than just the negative, that there was something inside of us that was great and we had to get it out, and they helped pull it out of us. If you agree with me, hit that like button, hit that share button, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about what I'm saying and if I'm telling the truth or not. Because the hip hop we had then and my marker and my soundtrack of life when I was younger was we had the girls, we had the streets, but we also had a positive example of how to build, how to live, and how to be something secure as we age in this game of life. And no matter who tried to put you down, you had the strength to overcome it. And that's what one of the most important things of life that hip hop gave us was identity. Shout out to June, because yeah, we in the 50th year of hip hop, and this year is going to be big. You see what I'm saying? I'm gonna tell y'all something very strategic about hip hop that we take for granted. Hip hop is the expression of God through us to the world. Because even before this thing that we call hip hop, there's a scripture in the Bible that God spoke to his people, which I think we are. And it said that you are the salt of the earth. If you know anything about salt, salt preserves, it gives flavor, and it makes sure everything that you taste comes out that much better because it heightens the taste by making the moisture of that thing that you're going to eat. um it preserves that moisture so every bite and every understanding of the palate when you bite that food tastes good. And when salt goes bad, they throw it out and they trample it underfoot, which means it's no good. But we have been keeping this world so good and keeping this world so flavorful that hip hop itself is the reason why we like sports, fashion, we buy things, and it became world culture out of the hood. But it was us finding who we are. It was us finding our identities. People think it's money, but it's not. People think it's us, think it's money, but it's us finding our identities that made hip hop culture take over the world. Shout out to June. He said, it was music. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper, Heavy D of limousine, hanging pictures on my wall. Damn right, man. Biggie, when Biggie said that, he encapsulated an entire generation of people that grew up with that. You see what I'm saying? He also says that's how I was introduced to hip hop. Maybe. I can't say you weren't. Because, like I said, you were introduced to hip hop in many ways because we always think of it as just music. What if you saw somebody with a nice outfit? You was like, damn, I like that. That was hip hop. What if it was the style of hair that your girl or the girl that you like wore? That was hip hop. How many of y'all remember the 8-ball jacket? That was hip hop. And I remember the era where people used to wear 8-ball jackets to get snatched off the bus. You know, I remember those eras. Hip hop was big when it came to fashion, and we take it for granted because everybody thinks about the beats and the rhymes. But yeah, and June, being that you are the co-host of one of the hottest sports radio shows, I think you were introduced to hip. You may have been introduced to hip hop through Biggie, but a lot of the appreciation you have for hip hop came through Allen Iverson because hip hop made sports that much better. If y'all remember the Allen Iverson years, which is another part of the soundtrack of my life, sports. I was a big basketball head. So one of the shows I used to like was NBA Inside Stuff. And NBA Inside Stuff, with Ahmad Rashad. I remember he used to play hip hop songs to the highlights of the week. Once again, shout out to Ralph McDaniels, because without Video Music Box, that would not have ever happened. And I remember NBA Inside Stuff, the Dream Team, that was 1992, the first Dream Team with Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, John Stockton, Karl Malone, David Robinson, Christian Laettner's bum ass that should have never been here, in my opinion, Chris Mullin, and some other players. We're not going to get into all of them. But they had a song called hi, you baby, get up a little faster, push a little harder, a little bit faster. Hi, you baby, get up. That was Will Smith, and that was a song that they did for the Dream Team. And that show put hip hop to sports. So then when Allen Iverson came with the cornrows and not wearing the suit, he had baggy clothes and everything. And he said in his Hall of Fame speech, his soundtrack to his playing basketball days was Biggie, Redman. I forgot the last one, and I apologize to y'all for that. But Biggie and Redman is what I remember the most. And yeah, that brought basketball to life for us because basketball was already in the city because you heard hip hop in the park already. But then to see people on TV playing ball and they had that song with it, the NBA owes hip hop a lot of money and a lot of copyright to how hip hop and credit to how hip hop has built the sport. Yeah, it's NBA Inside Stuff every Saturday. That's right. It was one of the best things that was on TV, Channel 4, NBC. And I remember they started encapsulating other songs into it, but the hip hop songs were always the best. I remember the Seattle Supersonics when they had I did the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I think it was, and they did the Sean Kemp song. Mookie Blaylock had a song. They had all this stuff. You know what I'm saying? NBA Inside Stuff has been brought back, and you could do it even better. So for everybody out there who wants to know who Mr. June Pierre is, please subscribe to H Squad Rebel Radio TV or follow June Pierre on Facebook, as his picture is right there. And he does like the Monday quarterback and things like that, and all that. BT Mad Sports, of course I do. Of course I do. That was another pivotal show that showed hip hop and our culture in sports. The chains, the shades, the style of dress, the hair, the highlights. That's like I said, that's the soundtrack of your life and mine. Because we came up in a time when hip hop was a dynasty, which means 90s hip hop started going everywhere and taking everything over. The 2000s, it became more corporate, but in the 90s, it was still raw and it went into every aspect of what hip hop was. So not only did you go see hip hop on the block, not only did you buy tapes and CDs eventually, but you turned on the television and you've seen hip hop in your sport. Even the NFL took hip hop because the Bears, when they won the Super Bowl, 1985 Super Bowl, the Bears did the Super Bowl rap. You know what I'm saying? Like sports took hip hop in another direction. Hip hop took sports in another direction because it showed how down people were, and it made you appreciate them much more. You want me to tell you what I mean? How many of y'all were G.I. Joe fans? How many of y'all had the refrigerator Walter Perry G.I. Joe figure? And it had a football at the end of a bolo, right? And he was swinging at things, right? And not only that, if you look at how he was dressed, he had the headband on, which was football and hip hop with the jersey and the boots. Think about that. That was big at the time because Refrigerator Perry was the man. And he did it with a hip hop flair. And they had the Super Bowl rap. You see what I'm saying? Bo Jackson was in hip hop. The man Bo Knows had lines about it. Bo knows this, the Bo knows that, but Bo don't know Jack because Bo can't rap. So yeah, this was all hip hop. This was the expression of our people in a positive way. The soundtrack of my life, I had hip hop and cartoons. How many of y'all remember the Kid and Play cartoon? Ola, ola, hey, roll the Kid and Play now. Or Hammerman eventually. You see what I'm saying? We had that because the soundtrack of our lives back then was not only about peace, love, and having fun, which was the Zulu mantra, it was about expression. I remember one of my good relatives died. I grew up with a lot of elder people in my family, and a lot of people passed away in my family. So one of the songs in hip hop that whenever I hear it, I get real sad, but it means more to me is Dead Homies by Ice Cube. And my father-in-law recently passed away. Rest in peace to Ronald Cowboy Wright. He passed away, and I remember I made a video for him, and I used Dead Homies as the song or the soundtrack for my sorrow for him. And I do it with any friends of mine that passed away because Crossroads is something for, boy, Bone Thugs and Harmony. People always talk about Uncle Charles and that nigga pushing him in the forehead and the spirit came out. People talk about that, right? Mine was Dead Homies. Well, Ice Cube talked about how strong can you be when you see your pops crying? Because that's why Ice Cube's dressed up, because the city is so effing messed up and everybody's so phony. But take a little time to think about your dead homie. That part of the song meant that much to me because I never met my grandparents on my father's side. And I think about how my dad may have cried at their funeral. I didn't go. But being a man and growing up into my adulthood, I know what it is to lose people. And losing people is very, very hard. Very hard. And I would just say Dead Homies did a lot for me that helped me express my sorrow in ways nobody else ever taught me to express myself. You know, like I said, man, hip hop is big, man, and it encompasses more than just beats because there's emotions in there. There's growing points in there. I'm gonna tell you 2 times I had growing points in hip hop. No, I'll give you 3. The first time I ever heard Redman and saw the hardcore video and knew that he was from New Jersey. Do you know how much pride came out of New Jersey, especially North New Jersey, when Redman was on the television? Like I said, I lived in one town, but I grew up in one town. So in another town. So where I live, Redman, we don't listen to that here. Who's Redman? Where I live, yo, you like Red too? That's what's up. And yo, I mean, What the album came out. And shout out to my man Damon Soto. He was the first one who had the What the album tape in school. And that's the first time I ever saw What the album. And time for some action. Time for some action. That came out. It was a rap. Uh Tonight's the Night. Classic. It was different. That was an identity thing because New Jersey was on the map. So there was a pride and when the Redman came out. Number 2, the first time I ever heard my M.O.P. and Wu-Tang Clan, Protect Your Neck. That was the same summer. I had birth songs. No, I'm lying. M.O.P. came out in 91, I think, on the House Party soundtrack. Wu-Tang came out in 93, I think. But around, like I said, Video Music Box was the only place playing those videos, and I seen them back to back one time, and I lost my mind because M.O.P. Two of my fellas on the corner posted up 20 deep with your end for your hip, ready to flip, whether you enter your clip, dip. I mean, come on, yo. I rolled deep like a mother effing Puerto Rican. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like, yo, what is this? And M.O.P. turned me out mentally and visually. But Wu-Tang had that style. So the first time I saw Protect Your Neck, I was like this at the screen with my eyes getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Because Wu-Tang is my other favorite hip-hop group. 1A, 1B. Public Enemy, Wu-Tang. And it was like, yo, what is this? That was a growing moment for me because that was the time I started breaking away from my brother's influence of hip hop to becoming my own man with Redman and Wu Tang Clan. So that's a growing point for me. And as a man, when people say they jumped off the porch early, my trek into the world being my own man started with Wu Tang and Redman. You know what I mean? So I got to give credit to them for being my soundtrack to life. The third one is when I heard Biggie Unbelievable. People talk about Juicy, and Juicy was cool. Don't get me wrong, Juicy was cool. But when I heard Unbelievable, Biggie became one of my favorite rappers of all time that day. And I was just there like, you know what I'm saying? I was around to hear Rakim, that was through my brother. I heard Big Daddy Kane, that was through the street. I heard LL Cool J, that was through the street and the girls. And I heard Slick Rick, and that was through the block. North New Jersey, that is. But when I heard Biggie, mm, Biggie, Notorious B.I.G. not only is one of the greatest artists that we lost too fast, his death was the first death in entertainment that ever broke my heart. And to this day, I can't even show y'all because here I got little Biggie pop figures and stuff. To this day, the way I love the Notorious B.I.G.'s music is so different than anybody else's because I saw me in an artist, and when he died, I lost a part of me in that artist as well. My cousin used to joke on me, right? Because I'm a big dude. And there was a Biggie St. Oz commercial, and there's a part of the commercial where Biggie has the shades on and he's just bopping his head. And my cousin was like, "Yo, that's you." He always said that to me. He was like, "Yo, that's you." That remind me of you, how he bopping his head. And I don't know about all that, but I know whenever Biggie was on that screen, I felt attached to that screen. No, I ain't have holes. No, I ain't have islands and stuff. And no, I didn't live the story of Arizona Ron from Tucson. But something about Big made me appreciate hip hop in a new way. And I knew that he was going to be one of my favorite artists forever. I had Jersey loyalty with Redman, Jersey loyalty with Tretch. But Biggie was the first. Biggie and Nas are the two artists from New York that resonated with me in another way. I ain't gonna lie, those are my two favorite New York artists, Biggie and Nas. And I'm gonna tell you something. Nas would be a whole nother video. I'm not even doing Nas right now. And I may do Biggie again. But soundtrack of my life, the death of Notorious B.I.G. made me feel sorrow for the first time to somebody outside of my immediate family. I didn't even really cry back then because I was younger. But when Biggie passed away and that eerie March 9th? And I think that March 9th was a Saturday. That Sunday morning, when the radio was sad and somber and they said Biggie died, I've never felt nothing like that before in my life. I remember my mom told me that when she heard Marvin Gaye died, how she cried her eyes out because that was her favorite artist. That's what I felt when Biggie died. And unfortunately, every generation has a story like that. Whether it's Biggie, Tupac, Nipsey. Some people cry for Amy Winehouse. Rest in peace to all these people. Pun, Big L, it hurt. And to be honest with you, I haven't felt another death that hit me like Biggie dying until Tame One died from the Artifacts. Rest in peace, Tame One. And man, I can only tell you, man, it's amazing. You know why it's amazing? Because the soundtrack of your life are moments in your life where a song can take you somewhere, or you heard that song in a certain capacity at the moment, that whenever you hear it, it takes you right back to those emotions or that time in which these events have happened. Do you agree? How do you feel about this conversation? Are you feeling this? Because at the end of the day, our lives are very important, and our lives are not ramifications of tragedy. Our lives are the summation of decisions and influences and experiences that we had that led us down a chosen track or path. Hip hop has guided me down paths that were not only great, but downfalls as well. Sometimes we took the negative lyrics and put them on and were cloaked in deceit that tricked our minds and our hearts and spirits and made us be people that we were not supposed to be. But sometimes hip hop gave us clothes of dignity and made us believe that we are who they say we're not, and elevate the game in ways in which we not only shocked the world, but we became world leaders, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, businessmen. Shout out to Dupre Kelly, councilmen, politics. Shout out to Andre Rainey, mayors, and more. For everybody out there who's watching this, I hope you enjoy this message, because I'm going to continue the soundtrack of my life series. And I'm going to break it down into movies, video games, songs, soundtracks, and more. And I hope you go on this journey with me and you appreciate this. When Heritage Hip Hop continues, you're going to see new graphics, new openings, hear more stories. And I pray that you understand that I'm not only pouring my heart out, not as a podcaster, but I'm pouring my heart out to show you that we are people of culture, and we are people of worth, and we are people of promise. If you believe me, please share this video with the youth, your peers, and some elders who think all we do is cuss and oversexed and think about violence. Because we're not. We're God's people. For we are God's heritage, and our heritage, and when hip hop is our culture, then God's heritage is hip hop, and that's who we are. So if you like this, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. Appreciate you. If you do appreciate this video, I just ask that you subscribe to heritagehiphop.com. That's right. Subscribe to heritagehiphop.com, where we have premiere videos, podcasts. We have a clothing line. You get, I got a hoodie on right now with the logo, the double H, but you can support with the clothing line. You could donate with the Cash App, $ Heritage Hip Hop. If you want to be interviewed or anything, all you gotta do is hit me up. For a follow, you can hit me up at Karev at heritagehiphop.com. But most importantly, more than me, if you know somebody who's doing something that's positive, support that person, because that's very hip hop. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share, and everything, and that's what's most important to me. Okay, I will be having artists on here again. I will have people come on and talk, and I pray not only to be the best in this, but to represent my Jersey people. No matter how Jersey is, I don't have to be that way. I'm gonna do it the right way. You see what I'm saying? To everybody out there who's watching Heritage Hip Hop, may the Most High bless you. Have a great night and a beautiful day. Peace. And I'm out.